Hey, Foxy listeners. In today's episode 52, we're going to be talking about upscaling, outsourcing, VAs, and what B.A.R.F stands for.
Welcome to Fox Talks Business Podcast with your host, Tanya Fox. Tanya has been an entrepreneur for over 20 years, owning retail, service, and franchise. She holds no punches and is never afraid to talk about the nitty-gritty. Together, you'll explore the good, the bad, and the motivational of business life, turning obstacles into opportunities and failures into successes. So grab your favorite drink and let's have some fun. Here's your host, speaker, crafter, and collaborator, Tanya Fox.
Today's guest is Nathan, who is a 30-year-old entrepreneur that has been scaling businesses since 2009. Nathan's first business, Portlight, sold over $30 million in sales through Amazon. He then co-founded freeup.com with only a $5,000 investment in 2015 and scaled it to $12 million per year in revenue. And it was then acquired in 2019. Today, Nathan is the co-founder of Outsourcing Cool, a company that is working to educate entrepreneurs on how to effectively hire and scale with virtual assistants through in-depth courses. So grab yourself a notebook because this episode is jam-packed. So thank you so much for joining me on the show today, Nathan.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
So tell us a little bit about your backstory, because I know a little bit about it from what you've sent me, but it's so interesting. So really feel okay to just really dive into the details because I just loved it. But where did you start from and how did you get to where you are?
Yeah, so growing up, my parents were both teachers. I grew up with a mentality that I was going to go to school, get a real job, work for 30 years and retire. And that's what they did. They're retired now. They're traveling the world. There's nothing wrong with that. But from a young age, my parents always made me work these 40, 50-hour week jobs. All my friends were outside playing. I was inside working, worked at Aaron's and Firestone and a few other places as well. And I learned a lot about business, just sales, marketing, dealing with customers, customer service. And I also learned how much I just hated working for someone else. I was watching the clock every day. I couldn't wait to get out of there. And I kind of got a glimpse into what life was like after college. And I wanted no part of it. And when I got to college and I went to Quinnipiac University in Connecticut, I kind of looked at it as a ticking clock. I had 4 years to start my own business, or I was going to go into the real world and work for someone else and have bills to pay and obligations and never look back. So from there, I started hustling. I noticed the school bookstore was ripping people off. I remember someone came to my dorm room and offered me like 10 cents for one of my textbooks that I had paid $100 for. And I said, you know what, I can do this better. And I found these online distributors and I started selling my books to them and they offered me way more money than the bookstore. And I said, you know what, I can turn this into a business. Let me buy up people's books and I'll sell them to these distributors. I'll make a little bit of a profit. They'll make more money in the bookstore. Everyone wins. So I created a little referral program. And before I knew it, there were lines out the door of kids trying to sell me their books, to the point where I actually got a cease and desist letter from my college telling me to knock it off because I was stealing too much of their business. So that was my first glimpse into being an entrepreneur. And I didn't want to get kicked out of college. My parents were both teachers. That would not have gone over very well. And I started experimenting. I had sold to some of these distributors, and one of the people that were buying these textbooks, or one of the businesses, was Amazon. This was 2008, 2009. No one really knew what Amazon was. It was kind of this big bookstore bursting onto the scenes, getting into other products. There were no courses, there were no gurus, no YouTube videos. None of that existed. And I thought it was so cool that with Amazon, I could have this 24/7 storefront. They'd automatically deposit money into my bank account. Like, all this was new. And I just had to figure out what to sell. I didn't want to sell books anymore. I didn't want to kick out of college. They were heavy. I didn't really have any place to store them. A lot of things going against books. And I started experimenting with the concept of drop shipping years before I even knew it was called drop shipping. The concept of, hey, I'm in college. I have no money to buy inventory up front. I have no place to put this inventory if I bought it. What if I went to these manufacturers, these distributors? They don't know what Amazon is. They don't know what e-commerce is. I'll tell them, hey, I'll get them sales. All they have to do is ship the product, make the product, ship the product, keep my credit card on file, charge me when they ship something, and I can mark the product up and make the difference as profit. So I have this concept. I get some manufacturers that agree to work with me as a 20-year-old, which is kind of tough. And I'm experimenting and I'm just failing. I can't get anything to sell besides these books over and over again. I try sporting equipment and video games and computers and outdoor supply, typical college guy stuff.
Right.
And finally, I just branch out of my comfort zone and I list some baby products and they sell. And I list more baby products and they sell. And before I know it, I'm spending hours a day just listing baby products on Amazon, and people think I'm crazy. Imagine me as a 20-year-old single college guy with a lot more hair, just selling thousands and thousands of baby products on Amazon.com. And people didn't even know what being an Amazon seller was. People thought I was running a Ponzi scheme. So I'm running this business. I'm making more money than I should. I think I'm making more money than my parents are at that point. And my parents tell me I should probably pay taxes. So I meet with an accountant, and the first question he asked me is, when are you going to hire your first person? And I kind of shrugged him off. Like, why would I do that? That's money out of my pocket. They're going to steal my idea. They're going to hurt my business. I'm sure you've thought that before. All entrepreneurs have a classic entrepreneurial mindset at first. And he just laughed in my face and he said, you're going to learn this lesson on your own. Well, sure enough, my first busy season comes around, the fourth quarter, Christmas. Everyone's buying toys. Everyone's buying baby products. And I'm doing everything myself. I'm responding to every email, listing every product, repricing everything. There's no Amazon software back then, incredibly manual. And I just get destroyed. I'm working 20 hours a day. My social life plummets. My grades go down. I'm really going crazy. I'm stressed out of my mind. And I work my butt off just to keep this business alive. And I get to January and I think to myself, man, I can never let that happen again. I need to start hiring people right now. So I'm 20. What do I know about hiring people? I post a job on Facebook. This guy in my business law class shows up, or he messages me and he says, hey, I don't know what you do. I need a job. I just hire him on the spot. I don't even interview him. And he ends up being this unbelievable hire. He's hardworking. He's smart. He ends up being my business partner, Connor Gillibin. We've been business partners for 10 years. So I just hit the jackpot, total luck. But there I am thinking, man, this hiring thing is easy. You post a job on Facebook, someone shows up, you make more money, your life becomes easier. And I just proceed to make bad hire after bad hire after bad hire, quickly learning that college kids, not very reliable, and no one in the real world, 30-year-olds, wanted to work for a 20-year-old Amazon seller. So I pivot and I learn about the remote hiring world, the Upworks, the Fivers, and I think this is incredible. I can hire people from all over, different time zones, different price points, different skill sets. I call it building a VA army. And that's what I did. And I hired some really good people, but I also just hated the process of posting a job, getting 100 applicants, interviewing them one by one. And I hated how the marketplace, if something went wrong with the VA, like I couldn't hold them accountable. They wouldn't make it right with me. And I just wanted something better. So I kept looking and looking. And finally, I said, you know what, I'll build this myself. So I launched my own marketplace, Free Up, with $5,000 and a minimal product. And we got it out there. We listened to feedback. We really tried to create a platform that was good for clients, good for freelancers. And we ended up scaling that to $1 million, $5 million, $9 million, $12 million over 4 years. And we were acquired about 150 days ago or so by one of our clients, the Hoth, which is a whole nother story we can get into. And now I'm working on a new company, Outsourcing Cool, to educate people how to use VAs and how we built an internal team for Free Up of VAs, because Free Up had no US employees, no office. It was 35 VAs in the Philippines, plus me and my business partner. And we were able to scale it. And I want to help other people do the same thing. So that's a short, long story of how I went from someone selling books to baby products to starting a freelancer marketplace to now Outsourcing Cool.
Yeah. And I love that through that all, like, and I know that some people might be listening and go, well, that's great. You know, he just has luck on his side, which I don't believe there's any such thing as luck. But can you talk a little bit about the story of when you decided to take a vacation and what that was like? Because I know a lot of lessons are learned, you know, when we sort of hit not necessarily rock bottom, but when we hit that bump in the road that we weren't expecting. And I love your story about it. And I think it's an important one.
Yeah, of course. So this is about year 1 to 2 of my Amazon business, and I'm crushing it. I have this one manufacturer who's doing about 80% of my sales. And I say, you know what, let's not worry about the other ones. Let's just focus on him. And On the other side, I hire this one person. I'm kind of stressed. I'm doing everything. Connor and I are splitting up the high level tasks, but I need someone to answer customer service emails and list products and reprice stuff. So I hire this manager of the day and I teach him to do everything. I spend 6 months training him and it's awesome. I'm sleeping better at night. He can run the business 5-6 days a week. And I have this business in a really good place. It is on autopilot. Money's pouring in. I'm a 21-year-old maybe at that time, and I'm on top of the world. And I say, you know what? I deserve a vacation. I haven't really done a vacation in a year. And I head to Myrtle Beach with Connor and a few other people. And on the first day of my vacation, I get 3 phone calls. The first from our manufacturer telling us that he no longer wanted to work with us. Second, from my manager of the day telling me that he was quitting on me to focus on school, a big lesson on hiring college kids. So 6 months of training down the drain. And then just to top it off, I get a call from my accountant telling me someone had filed a fake tax return in my name and stolen $40,000 from the government as a tax return. And I was going to have to deal with that mess when I got home. So
great vacation.
Great vacation. Spend the rest of vacation drinking. I went from this ultimate high to I'm this 21-year-old entrepreneur. I don't need to get a real job. No one can touch me to, man, everything I just spent the last year and a half building is destroyed and I have to start this thing over. And Connor and I really sat down and we said, all right, like, what did we learn from all this? And the biggest lesson was you have to diversify. You can't have all your eggs in one basket. So when we came back, Connor and I started reaching out to every manufacturer we could find, and we built relationship with over 300 manufacturers. And once it became time to hire people again and we got sales back up, we said, you know what, let's build out teams. We got a customer service team, we got a listing team, we got a repricing team, and the people on those teams are only doing that task. So if any of them quit, and it wouldn't be the last person that quit on me, you just plug someone else in that team and you have an SOP for it, and it doesn't take 6 months to train them. So, and the tax return thing ended up being a lot of paperwork, but I personally didn't lose any money. And now I have a PIN I have to submit with my taxes every year for the rest of my life. So could have been worse. So the whole thing was definitely a learning experience. And I feel like a lot of entrepreneurs kind of fall into that trap because hiring's hard and you make a few bad hires. You finally find someone you like, and then you load that person up with everything. And you don't realize how risky that really makes your business.
Oh, and I think that's true because I think we try to do it all ourselves for so long. And then a lot of times, like I've seen it just in my family where they will turn and hire family, which I refuse to do. Love my family dearly, refuse to pay them. I've made that mistake. But I think it's true is that we think, well, I'm just going to get somebody else. And I think this is the biggest mistake I know I made as an entrepreneur is thinking that I could find somebody else who would have the same passion mentality and be able to hold the same workload as I could. And it took me a long time to realize that I can't do that because there's a reason I had to get somebody else to do it. Like you were saying about learning how to diversify a role and split it up because you can't find that person because I couldn't even do it.
Yeah, and everyone's looking for that unicorn VA. It just doesn't exist.
Well, and you can't expect them to do it, right? Because I realize that there's some knowledge that's just locked away in my brain that I can't train. I can't train passion. I can't train, that's just something that either it's there or it's not with a person. So tell us a little bit more about the outsourcing school and how that works and how people can really use that. Because I think this is where a lot of my listeners are right now is they're realizing they can't do it all, but they don't know where to go from there because like you had said, the hiring out process can be a nightmare. I've got great stories, but after.
Yeah. So Outsource School was an idea. I mean, we've been asked to build a course for the past 4 years. We really haven't had time. We've just been focusing on free app, and we put out podcasts and blog articles and different stuff. But there's a difference between that and walking someone through, hey, this is our exact process for hiring a VA. And we have some big ideas for Outsource School. We want to build it out into a big education platform with different mini courses, like how to use a VA to get on podcasts, how to use a VA to run your social media. We have software ideas we want to build to help people use VAs and be more organized. But it all starts with our first course coming in March 2020 called Cracking the VA Code, our IOTM method. And IOTM is IOTM. That stands for interviewing, onboarding, training, and managing. And with FreeUp, we really practiced what we preached. We had 35 VAs in the Philippines, and they ran all day-to-day operations, from billing to customer service to recruitment and interviews. And we had no US employees and no office. So what we wanted to do is teach other people how to do that, because we didn't just wake up one day and hire 35 people and cross our fingers and hope it worked out. We spent a lot of time interviewing them. And once we interviewed them, we set expectations and onboarded them and gave them a chance to back out before they accepted the role, so they knew what they were getting into. And we trained them while valuing Connor and my time, so that we didn't spend one-on-one time interview or training someone for 2 weeks and then realize they suck and not be able to get that time back. We had an actual system for how we implement and train people. And then once we've invested all this time, money, and energy into interviewing, onboarding them, and training them, we kept them around. We had very low turnover, less than 5%. With the Hoth, the company that bought FreeUp, they're keeping the same team. They love the company. They got them to buy in, and they weren't going anywhere. And we really built that family environment that people wanted to stay a part of, even though maybe some of them, and they were really awesome, could have gotten a higher paying job elsewhere. So we're going to teach you the exact process of how to interview someone, how to set expectations, how to onboard them, how to train them while valuing your time, and then how to keep them around, how to run meetings, how to motivate them, all stuff that, man, I wish that someone had told me back in the day. It really took me 5+ years to really figure out all 4 parts of it.
And do you find that these days people are really starting to head back? You know, we kind of went into this, this avenue of people really wanting, you know, the most money. It was bang for their buck. And I find, like, I know you're in the States, I'm in Canada, but I find people are really wanting more of the experience. Like, we're starting to make that shift back where they want to feel valued. They want to feel like they're a part of something. And do you find that shift is happening back?
Yeah. So one of the most fascinating things at FreeUp, we had group chats with all the freelancers on the platform, right? All the VAs, all the freelancers, not my internal team. These are just service providers on the platform. And I would engage with them. I would ask them questions. And one day I asked a question. I said, what makes your favorite client? And in my mind, everyone's just going to say the client that pays the most money, right? Like, that's right. The entrepreneur in me. That's what I'm thinking. And the responses was not that at all. It's the clients that set expectations, so people know what they're getting into and they're not agreeing to a project that is outside of their scope or outside of what they want to do. It's a client that treats them well, that makes them feel a part of their business, that tells them the reason they're actually doing the project and how it impacts the business, instead of just do this project, hand it in, do another project. And the client that actually builds a relationship with them that's long-term and is realistic. And not everything is full-time long-term. Sometimes clients will hire project-based, but up front they'll say, hey, this is what the relationship that I'm looking for. Here's how it's going to work. I want to make sure it's a win for you. I want to make sure it's a win for me. And it's got nothing to do with what the price is. Now, obviously everyone has a number that they feel like they're worth and their time's worth. And I don't recommend lowballing people. And we teach this in the course. You want to find someone who can work for the amount that you want to pay. But I mean, there's always going to be like the Apples and the huge companies in the world that can pay more than you. You can't compete on price with hiring people around the world, but you can always compete on culture, on family environment, on setting expectations, and how you treat and work with people going forward. And that's what they care about. And I agree with you. I think we're I don't know if we ever left that, but we're definitely going in that direction.
Yeah. And I think people are wanting more of that experience, but we're seeing a lot more where people are finding different ways, like especially with VAs and doing stuff online and getting rid of that stereotype of brick and mortar. And that's how you have to run a business. And that's the only way you can run a business. So we're starting to sort of see that change. So can you just give some examples of what ways business owners can use VAs to help them out? Like some of the most popular ones you see.
Yeah. And I'll also add in that I opened up an office around year 5 or 6 of my Amazon business. And it was probably one of the worst business decisions I ever made, just adding overhead to a business that didn't need it. I took all these remote people that were happy and I brought them to one place and I thought it would be more productive, but it just added drama. And then I felt like I created a 9-to-5 job for myself that I had to drive into every day. So that was a whole nother thing. But I mean, just some stuff that I like to take off my plate first. Bookkeeping is the first one. I spent the first few years of my Amazon business doing all my books with Connor. We would get a credit card statement this thick from our manufacturers, and we would input them into QuickBooks, and it was terrible. And so bookkeeping, getting that off your plate as an entrepreneur, one of the best tasks. Most entrepreneurs, including myself, aren't very good at bookkeeping anyway. So if you can get someone that's a good first step. Social media is a good one. We live in the age of social media, posting on different channels, coming up with calendar content. You can find people more advanced that can create graphics and different stuff like that, or find other people's content that's relevant. Lead generation is a good one. I use them to do research on podcasts. I use them to find virtual events. I used to use them for speaking events, although I'm taking a little bit of a break for that since we sold FreeUp. But lead generation, whether it's finding clients, finding partners, finding influencers, you can hire a VA and create a really good lead generation process. And if anyone wants mine, feel free to shoot me an email, support@outsourcecool.com. I'm happy to share mine free of charge. And I mean, other stuff that is customer service and executive assistant type roles. One of the first hires I had with FreeUp was someone to just monitor my inbox from 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. So I think it was from 5 a.m. to 7 a.m. So I would wake up at 7 and my inbox would be cleared and they say, hey, Nate, I left these 2 emails for you. They were important. And that gave me a head start to every day. So those are just a few, but you can get creative with what you use VAs for, and you don't have to always hire them full time.
And one of the questions I know I've gotten the most, like I had originally hired a VA and now she's just staff because I loved her and I didn't want to lose her to anybody else. So I took her off the market and I'm really glad I did. But one of the questions I get most often from people is, aren't you scared that all of a sudden one day they're going to just disappear and then they have everything because they've controlled everything for so long? So what would your answer to that question be?
Yeah. So two parts of it. One is the whole diversification and making sure that it's not just one person running your whole business, making sure you have backups of stuff and that you're giving people access in the right way, and that you have different VAs, that you have a backup plan. Maybe you have 3 VAs and you've cross-trained them a little bit. And if someone, even if they don't quit, if they get sick, if they get pregnant, someone else can jump right in there and cover for them, which is important. The second part of it is, there's always going to be a risk, right? There's nothing me or you or anyone can do to make that risk zero. And you can have them sign documents, NDAs, but are you really going to chase someone across the Philippines over a piece of paper?
Right.
Probably not. And there's other small things that we teach, like connecting with them on social media and stuff like that. But the biggest thing is building that relationship. I've had VAs that have quit on me. I've had VAs that I fired and they didn't want to hurt me. I didn't want to hurt them because we had built that relationship. And that doesn't happen overnight. But we actually call it our B.A.R.F method, which is a funny acronym, but it stands for getting them to buy in, showing appreciation, building the relationship, and creating a family environment inside your business. And when you do those things, the chances of them just stealing everything drastically goes down. The one last note is, what are they really going to do if they steal everything? Are they really going to go out and start another business? Are they really going to go out and compete with you? What can they actually do with that information? And if someone steals your credit card, for example, they go out, they make some charges, you cancel your credit card, you charge it back, you get the money back, and it ends up not being as big of a deal as what you think it is. So really understanding, like, what are they actually stealing? Are they going to reach out to all your clients? And man, you have to go send out an email to all your clients and being, hey, sorry about that. We let them go. They acted in an unprofessional way. Let me make it up to you by XYZ. Like that's the more realistic worst case scenario, rather than, oh, they took everything and now I'm homeless.
Yeah. And I think that's a good analogy that you gave, because it's true. I remember being away once and then seeing a charge on my credit card and having that initial like shock of fear, because it was for like a hostel in Vietnam. And I remember being like, oh my God, that's it. Like everything's going to crap. I've never had anything stolen from me. And yeah, I just called them and they're like, you're not there. And I'm like, pretty sure I'm not in Vietnam. Like I wasn't. I was in Ottawa, Ontario. So I just sent a picture of me standing outside of Parliament Hill. And yeah, it was an easy fix. But I think sometimes we get, it's that sense of fear, right? It's that initial sort of shock to it all. So,
yeah.
Oh, now I just lost my question.
Well, I have one last thought on that. While you look that up.
Yes. I'll edit that out.
I mean, there's very few sole entrepreneurs that are doing like $5 million a year, right? It just doesn't exist. Hiring is really one of the only ways to scale. If you want to grow your business, at some point, you're going to have to hire people. At some point, you're going to have to trust people. And if you refuse to do that, then you're going to limit yourself and you're going to set that ceiling. And that ceiling ends up being pretty low. I mean, how can you really work 7 days a week forever? We live in a time where most businesses are running 24/7 within reason. So I mean, hiring is the only way, and the only way to hire eventually is to trust people.
Yeah. And I think I love that, because it's true. I mean, you don't see any, huge companies out there that are one person or two person. And, like you said too, I think the idea that entrepreneurs initially go into business is, like you had said, you didn't want to work the 9 to 5 grind. You didn't want to have to like trudge yourself into an office every day. And I think somewhere along the lines, sometimes we lose that of remembering the reason we got into this is because we didn't want to work all the time. So hiring out is a way to do that. So what
Right.
can people expect when the course launches? What can people expect out of the course? Like, what are they going to see on this?
Yeah. So if we go through it's going to cover interviewing, onboarding, training, and managing. For interviewing, we're going to show you our CARE process, and that stands for communication, attitude, red flags, and experience. So we test people on that, and you're going to not only get a template with 22 interview questions that we ask every single interview, but we're going to walk you through the questions so you understand what you're looking for. And then you're going to actually see us interview a real VA that we got from our old company, Free Up. We put in a request just like a client would. We're now Free Up clients, even though we don't own it anymore. And we interview them, and you can watch us do it. We ask those questions. You're going to see good interviews, bad interviews. You're going to be able to see what the red flags are, and we're going to walk you through it. And then you're going to go out and put out a request and interview someone. And then once you go through that, same thing with onboarding. We have our SICK method, which covers schedule, issues, communication, and culture, setting the expectation for all 4 of those. And we're going to walk you through it so you know what to expect, and then go through and onboard someone. And you're going to be able to watch our screen as we do it, and we're going to point out the good and the bad, and then you're going to be able to go out and do that and apply our methods. For the training, we're going to show you our SSS method, which is share, study, show, and have you actually watch us train a VA and do it while valuing your time so that you're not just spending hours and hours and hours doing it. We're going to teach you how to create a really good SOP so that you can do that, and then you're going to be able to implement it. And lastly, for the management, I mentioned our B.A.R.F method, which we'll dive into and give you a cheat sheet on how you can run meetings and get people to buy in and build that family environment. And then we'll also go deeper on, hey, let's not have 15 VAs that are all reporting to you. Let's put in team leaders and assistant team leaders and how you build that out and how you run meetings and how you run project management. And God forbid you have to fire someone. What are the steps to doing that? So you're going to get that full picture and be able to implement it. And then we're going to support you. If you have any questions, if something comes up during the interview or the onboarding or one of your meetings that you don't know how to handle or what to do, we're going to be able to quickly respond to that and help you and make sure that you're having the kind of success that we want people to have with virtual assistants.
So one of the questions I know that's probably going on in people's minds is, initially off the bat is they don't know what they can afford, because the thought of just so much money goes into their head. But you have a special tool for that. So tell us a little bit about the tool that you have for people who are asking that question or that wondering that.
Yeah, and this is a common mistake. I actually saw it Free Up a lot. I won't say a lot of clients, but I would see it pretty consistently where their business would be doing okay, and they hire a few VAs and they invest time and money and energy, and then they realize they couldn't afford that VA, so they have to let one of them go or decrease their hours or whatever it is. And you don't want to do that. You want to know what you can actually afford. So if you go to outsourcecool.com/VA calculator, we created a tool where you can put in, hey, if I pay a VA $6 an hour, and we give you kind of a ballpark of what you should expect to pay. It's really in that $5 to $10 an hour range. And you can put in, hey, my business makes X amount per month. And it's going to tell you, hey, you can afford 2 full-time VAs or 4 part-time VAs, depending on how you want to go about it. And that'll give you a really good benchmark so that you can, hey, as you're following our IOTA method, maybe you're interviewing for 2 positions, or you're interviewing for 1 full-time and 1 part-time, and you're going to be very confident that your business can actually afford that going forward.
Because I think that's the key thing. I think we get stuck, or we try to go too big too fast. I see that so often that we just think, well, I'm going to pay top dollar, but then you can't sustain that. And that's, I think, what you were talking about in the B.A.R.F method, which I just absolutely love that acronym, but is...
Yeah, we're also in the management section that I forgot to mention. We have a whole thing on bonuses and raises, because you're right. That's where people mess up. They're like, okay, I hired this person at $5 an hour, but in 4 years, you're not going to be paying them $5 an hour. So what's a reasonable raise? Is it every 6 months, every year? What can you expect? How do you track it? We have a great bonus tracker that you can use. And then bonuses too. And how do you use bonuses to actually motivate them and get the most out of them? Because if you do it in the proper way, bonuses are a really awesome tool that you have at your disposal.
And I think that's true. And I think that's what leads all into that retention piece, which a lot of people miss, is when you have a great employee, you want to keep them. And that was the biggest thing. Like when I had mentioned before, when I had my VA and I hired her, I didn't want to lose her. So I had to really sit down and go, what is it worth if she leaves? And then what is it worth if I try to keep her full time? And
Right.
I kept her full time because there was no way I'd be able to find somebody to do as much as she does.
Yeah, and off of that, and I've done this. I did this with Layden at FreeUp. I hired her, and she had another client, and I said, "What will it take for you to drop that other client and work for me?" I was like, "Think about it, get back to me." She came back. She says, "Hey, I need $1.50 raise," and in my mind, she was a rock star. Super easy. All right, so if I give you $1.50 raise starting right away, and you're going to keep the same raise and bonus program going forward, you'll drop the other client, you'll focus on me, and I'll make you a team leader because now you're exclusive to me, and you're awesome. And she said, yeah. And it was one of the best business decisions I ever made. We gave hundreds of thousands of dollars of our sale to our internal team. She got a big part of that. She was one of the rock stars that helped us build it. So you can get creative to figure out exactly who are the best people on your team and how do you keep them around.
And I think that's a key thing. And I think that that's great that you're teaching that, because I don't think a lot of entrepreneurs really have anywhere that they can access that information. It's all just kind of, they feel like they're trial and error. And what I'm hearing is that that's what you're trying to do, is to be able to offer another resource for entrepreneurs to learn all of this stuff that you just don't know about because you haven't had to cross a long time ago.
Yeah, and there's always going to be weird situations that come
Yeah.
up, and that's something that I think I'm looking forward to, because as people email us like, "Hey, my VA said this," or "Hey, I came across this issue," and Connor and I have probably seen it. We've been hiring VAs for 10 years. We're going to know how to handle it, but that'll give us more fuel. Hey, let's make sure that we add this to the course or future courses or whatever it is, and also make sure that person that emailed us has a good answer, has a good game plan going in.
And I have always, well, I can't say always. I would say probably the last 15 years I've been in business, I've learned that it takes too long to make all of the mistakes yourself. So I would much rather learn from other people's. It's a lot
Exactly.
easier. So if people are interested in getting in contact with you, learning more about the program, where's the best place for them to go?
So me personally, I'm one of the easiest people to contact online. You can find me on Facebook or LinkedIn at Nathan Hirsch. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at The Real Nate Hirsch. Feel free to reach out to me. I love meeting other entrepreneurs and helping any way I can. You'll have a link. You can go to outsourcecool.com. We'd love for people to join our newsletter. If you want the VA calculator, go to outsourcecool.com/VA calculator. And if you want to email Outsource Cool, just support@outsourcecool.com.
And just before we go, I just wanted to, you had said that one of the most memorable pieces of advice you ever received was to get your minimal viable product out there. Can you tell us a little bit about that? Because we're hearing more about that, but I want to know your take on it.
Yeah, and some people will say minimal sellable product, which same concept, same idea. I mean, with FreeUp, we had an idea in our mind. We knew what we thought the best or the perfect marketplace would be, and we didn't want to dump $100,000 into building out the platform and then launch it to market and have Connor and I be the only people that really wanted this marketplace. So we took $5,000. We built a minimal viable product using one of the developers that we knew very well. And it did very little. Freelancers could clock in and clock out. Clients could log into their account and see the freelancer in their account and how much time was built. And that was it. It didn't do anything else. We would have to manually add the freelancer to their account. People wouldn't be able to submit requests through the software. We built that later. People would be emailing me, Skyping me, calling me, texting me whenever they needed a graphic designer, a video editor, whatever it was. And we just got it to market. We said, hey, we've got this Rolodex of VAs and freelancers. All you have to do is let us know what you need and you got it. And then we said, okay, now that we've seen people like it and people are using it and the revenue is going up, what do people like? What are the features that people want in this software? And at one point in year one, we had 100 pages of features that people wanted added to our software. And we said, okay, now we have to figure out how to prioritize this. What comes first? What comes second? Are we focusing on lots of big or one or two big projects or lots of small projects, and figuring that out later? But we just got it to market and asked as many people for feedback as possible. And we're really doing the same thing with Outsource Cool. We have this one course coming out. We've been just meeting with lots of entrepreneurs, asking them questions, trying to get their feedback. But we also have some software that's a little bit confidential right now, but hopefully I can share it next time we talk. And we're still developing it. We're seeing what people like, what people don't like. And we're meeting with entrepreneurs. We're not going to spend 3 years building it. We're going to try to get it out relatively soon and really just listening to feedback and then making adjustments from there.
And I think that I love that, because when I opened my first retail store, that's a lesson I learned. Because of course, when you initially open, you just kind of shop. Go, this is what I would like. But I found it was a lot easier to just get my customers to do my stock ordering for me for that, because they were the ones who were buying it. So I would just be like, here's the, like I left the catalogs out on my coffee table and with a Sharpie marker, and they would literally circle the items that they wanted. And I was like, why wasn't I doing this before? I was stressing about it. I would literally just, pick up the magazine and order what they said. And I never needed backstock. I never needed anything. And I think that's a key tip, is that we try to wait too long, or we think that we can figure it all out. When sometimes, and I'm sure you can agree to this, sometimes you're really surprised by what people want, because you think, oh, I didn't think that would have been that important.
Right. A lot of really good entrepreneurs are not the exact same market as they're selling to. So you really have to talk to that market and get information from them and design your product and service around them.
So if you could give our listeners one piece of advice about hiring a VA, what would it be? I know there's probably lots, but just pick one.
So I mentioned the 4 parts, and the interviewing, onboarding, training, and managing. And I think most people know that in some capacity you need to interview people. And I think most people know that in some capacity you need to train them. And then after you train them, you need to manage them. But the part that everyone forgets is that onboarding, that setting expectations. So let's say you interview 3 VAs, you interview Bob, Jane, and Joe, and Bob's your favorite VA, and you want to hire Bob at $5 an hour. Go to Bob and say, hey, Bob, I want to offer you $5 an hour. I want to make sure that rate's still good with you. Assuming it is, all right, let's go through expectations. And we call it our SICK method. We go through the schedule. We go through how to handle issues. We go through how to communicate. We go through how to, man, I just blanked. Culture. We go through culture in culture of our business and what they're looking for versus what we're looking for. And once we get on the same page and we go through everything, I give him a chance to back out, because I would much rather that he backs out right then and there at the beginning of the onboarding or the middle of the onboarding, than for me to start training him and investing time into him, and then he realizes it's not a fit. So a lot of people, they interview them. Hey, Bob, you're the best. Bob, you're hired for $5 an hour. Let's get started training. And they skip that very important onboarding, setting expectation step.
And I think, I love that. Because I think it's true. We do tend to do that, right? And even on the other side of it, you get really excited about working with someone that you don't think of what it's going to look like in a couple of weeks when the glitter dies down, let's say.
Exactly.
Well, thank you so much for coming on and sharing with us. We're going to make sure that we link to all of the places that people can find you. And then, of course, to the VA calculator and stuff like that, because I think that's a really key tool for people, even just starting out. Figure out what it is that you can afford, and then to be able to go to the Outsource School to learn more about how to work with VAs.
Yeah, I really appreciate you having me on. We'd love to work with you and help your community. And if anyone has any questions or feedback or whatever it is, feel free to connect with me or connect with Outsource School.
In all of my conversations with Nathan, one of the things that I found that stuck with me the most is realizing the lesson that I learned about not trying to do everything by yourself, because it's not as much fun, and you don't get to that finish line as fast as you would if you have a good team behind you. So I encourage you all to head over to his website and use the VA calculator and find out how much it is that you can afford, what it is that you're willing to give up, and move forward so that you can reach your goals that much faster. And whether you're hiring a new VA, whether you're just trying to figure out how you're going to let go of some stuff, make sure that you take some time out to have fun. Because if you're not having fun, why are you doing it?